All right. This is another Natural Law with Bill Hoy podcast episode. And my main theme here is Americans do not truly care about children. I mean, we Americans certainly say we care about our children. We intend to care about our children, but I mean, we have to admit that we don't truly care about our children as much as we think we do, and we got to start learning how to truly care about our children and raise competent adults that know and understand a trivium learning method, knowledge, understanding, wisdom, and know how to think for themselves. And that's not what's happening. And this is a clip here from an MSN article where Donald Trump says, I don't want people to get hurt by release of the Epstein files. You know, this man, Donald Trump, who is the leader of America, who represents America, um, whether we like him or not, um, doesn't want people to get hurt. Keep in mind, these people he's talking about getting hurt are involved in horrendous crimes against children. Horrendous. And we Americans support this man. How is it that Trump, who was directly involved with a child sex trafficker, is still the leader of America? Because, like I said, Americans do not truly care about children. It's us, folks. The problem's not Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whatever, or Bill Clinton, the Clintons. The problem is us. We Americans are the problem. And whether we like it or not, whether we're supporters of Trump or Trump haters, on the left side, we support everything these people are involved with. And this reflects on us. And this, folks, let that sink in. This man, Donald Trump, along with others like Bill Clinton, and I think I'm going to mention them, but it doesn't really matter because the problem's we the people, okay? But yeah, Bill Clinton was involved, and yeah, I am going to mention that, and Bill Gates and Alan Dershowitz, uh, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and many others. But they're not the problem. It's we the people are the problem. We support these people. How do we support them? Well, we lend our attention to them. We work for their institutions. We work for the IRS. We work for the Federal Reserve, FBI, CIA, ICE, all this stuff. But the fact that all these people involved in DC politics, at minimum, knew what this guy was doing, and these people are, especially like Donald Trump, and even in his days, Bill Clinton, representing us. And these people, I mean, I don't know how anyone could support in any way a person that's involved in child sex trafficking, even if all they did was just know it was going on and didn't say anything about it. Let me continue. Men who were clients, friends, and business partners of Jeffrey Epstein are free. One's the leader of America, Trump, and the others are chilling in their mansions like the people I mentioned. Gates and Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz, all that crew. Um, and there's others. There's many others. The list is huge. And folks, I was looking at some of the redacted pieces of the Epstein files, and it looks like Donald Trump was more than someone that just knew what Epstein was doing, but didn't get involved. It looks like Donald Trump was a client of Epstein as well, not just socializing with him and doing business with him. It looks like Donald Trump could be involved in some really bad stuff. But how are we ever going to know unless we, the people, stand up and say, look, we're not participating in this anymore. We're not voting. We're not working for the IRS. We're not working for the Federal Reserve. We're not paying taxes anymore. We're walking away. We're not working for the FBI, CIA. We're not joining the military. We're walking away. Unless we have that threat where we can walk away and say we're going to shut this down, we're walking away, we're never going to find out what's, how deep this really goes and how much Trump and others are really involved and what they actually were really doing. Because it really, I mean, I've studied all this child sex trafficking stuff, and some of this stuff is really, really horrendous and horrific, like really awful. And how are we ever going to know? Same with climate engineering programs. People, how are we ever really going to know what these airplanes in the sky, filling the sky with their emissions, are actually doing? And how much more technologies whoever's in charge of this, the climate engineering programs, has and is using? We'll never know unless we threaten to shut this down. If we just continue to go along, we're never going to know. And the truth is, folks, most people don't want to know. And that's where Americans do not truly care about their children comes in. Because most people don't want to know. Most people, it just makes them feel better when they're told, don't worry about it, everything's fine, by their trusted news source. People don't want to know, because if people really wanted to know, we would get to the bottom of this. And this MSN article, Donald Trump says, I don't want people to get hurt by release of Epstein files. I mean, once again, folks, keep in mind, he's talking about people. He doesn't want to hurt, as he says, people who have committed horrendous crimes against children. And we Americans support this man, whether we vote for him or just support him, or we're against him on the left side, hating him. That supports him as well. I've been over that with the left-right paradigm. Both sides support each other. You support the left, you support the right, you support the right, you support the left. That's how the game works. Whether you just don't participate in politics and just don't want to say anything. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to how we, fight this. But here, this is a article from MSN, which is a leftist-leaning publication. And I just wanted to point out this here, outlined in red. And this is from MSN, leftist leaning. You would think the lefties would go after Trump, right? Well, not exactly. Trump has consistently denied any wrongdoing related to the Epstein case, has not been accused of any crimes by law enforcement, and has never been identified as the subject of any investigation. And that's from a leftist leaning publication, and you would think the lefties would be going after Trump like nobody's business, but they're not. Why? Of course, because many leftist people, former President Bill Clinton and Bill Gates, to name a few of the lefty people that were involved with this Epstein guy. And there you have it. Folks, this is deep. And we Americans support this. We Americans are protecting these people that Donald Trump doesn't want to get hurt. And how can you say you truly love your children or children in general if we support this guy, whether directly or indirectly? Every one of us Americans should be speaking out about this guy. Every one of us Americans should be saying, this man does not represent me. I mean, I'm not into politics at all. I don't need any of them. Politics is violence. Politics is slavery. But under the current situation and current circumstances, these top politicians represent who we Americans are and our values. And the truth is, folks, that this man, Donald Trump, and a former president, Bill Clinton, um, they represent our values. And unfortunately, folks, our values are traumatizing children. I know we Americans don't say we value that. I mean, you go up to any American, they're not going to say they value that. But they do. They do it indirectly. They do it without really being conscious of it. And this has got to stop. We Americans got to start loving our children. Let's continue. All right. So this is, like I said in the beginning there, another one of my podcast episodes. This is Natural Law with Bill Hoy. This is episode 124. It's July 28th, 2026. My website is naturallawwithbillhoy.com. And this is where I'm going to be doing my podcast series. So you can see on the left and the right there, left, lower right, podcast series on Anchor, Spotify. But I'm really going to be doing these podcasts now on YouTube. I mean, unless they get canceled or censored or whatever. And I'll probably put the recording, the audio on Spotify. Not right away, but I mean, this is what I'm doing now. I'm just going to do these shorter podcasts. Usually on my podcasts on Spotify, they're an hour to an hour and a half, but that's not going to be the case. Probably about 30 minutes. We're just really in a sad situation. I'm going to get to some free talk, and I just wanted to just do a couple lessons here. So let me move on, just in case anybody's watching. I mean, most people really don't like my work because I guess I'm not promoted by the bigs. And also, I'm sure the algorithms make it difficult for people to reach me. And maybe I'm doing some things that could help my algorithms that I really not aware of. But it's I kind of lost my train of thought. But yeah, this is it. I don't get a lot of views, and sometimes I just feel like not even bothering. Even on Spotify, during the scamdemic, I had a lot of plays, but since then, not really. And I haven't done a podcast on Spotify in months. But yeah, I don't know, folks. I'm just, I try to stay up. I try to stay up with what's really going on, but it's a really bad situation, and it's just sad that people don't even realize how bad this is. But let me get on to the lesson. Take the vaccine. And there you go. So Donald Trump there. This man represents all Americans, whether you support him, his opposites, the left, politics in general, or even if you are not a participant in politics. Don't blame Trump, blame yourself for staying publicly silent about this man's direct involvement with child predators. America is the land of child torture. It just is, folks. And once again, I know if you just walked up to any American and asked them, hey, are you into child torture? They might even really snap on you. I mean, yeah, somebody a question like that. But folks, it's just the truth. This man represents us. This man represents us. This man, whether you say he does or not, unless you're speaking out against him, he represents you. This man who was involved with child sex trafficking and protecting child sex traffickers, that's represents us. That's who we are. And with all this Iran shit, no one's talking about this. You got people getting tens of thousands of views talking about how Muslims are our biggest problem here in America, folks. Our biggest problem here in America is the IRS and the Federal Reserve. And why do we have these institutions? Because we traumatize our children. I'm going to get to that. So, we Americans torment our small children by sending them to public schools where they are taught to march in rank and file like soldiers. They are taught to not think for themselves and only trust legitimate authorities. They are compelled to stand for the national anthem and salute a flag. It's child abuse. It's child abuse, folks. Children do not have the memory storage capacity or the knowledge of how to learn, knowledge, understanding, wisdom, to understand why they're standing for some song and saluting some piece of cloth, which I'm all for an American flag, but it's just a piece of cloth, folks. And children should not be compelled to stand for that. I think I'm gonna get a little more to that, but here it is. Here, let me do this. Yeah, there we go. That's a old article I pulled up for a while and talking about how in Iowa they're they're voting on, I don't know what the result was, but they were voting on whether kids should be forced to stand for a national anthem. But folks, I've said this a million times. When a kid's in school and every kid's standing up for the national anthem, the kid's going to stand up. That's just what's going to happen. Okay. But kids don't have the memory storage capacity to understand. Oh, hey kid, you need to stand for this national anthem and salute this flag because men died in World War II for your freedom. No kid can ever understand that. Most adults can't even understand that. Most adults don't know jack shit about World War II. Most adults don't even know that the Roosevelt administration knew up to the very day when the Japanese were going to attack Pearl Harbor. Most adults don't even know that we Americans were blockading the Japanese, which is pretty much an act of war. We were sanctioning them, putting blockades, naval blockades on them, preventing them from getting oil. Americans did everything to provoke that. The former, I think the chief admiral of the Navy resigned. He wanted the Navy to be brought back to San Diego, and the Roosevelt administration refused. How many Americans know that? How many Americans know about the fire bombings that were directly targeted on civilians, direct targets on civilians for a show of force against the Soviets? Most Americans don't know anything about World War II, let alone a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old child. So continuing on, the kids, they are taught that they are only as good as the grades they get. That's that outcome-based education. They are taught that when two children get in a fight, both are wrong. That's communism, Marxism. They are taught that there are limits to how good a person can be. We're teaching our children that they're not good enough. We're traumatizing the shit out of them in these public schools. Subjecting our children for 13 years of their life in this compulsory school system. And you know why? Because Americans do not truly care about their children. They say they do, they intend to. Folks, I had to look in the mirror and say to myself that I didn't love my children as much as I thought I did. I thought I loved my children. I didn't realize that I didn't. As much as I thought I did. And we're traumatizing them by sending them to these schools. And let's be honest. Let's be honest, Americans. When how many times have all you parents out there? I've said this. When the summer's winding down and school's about to start up, we get all happy. Oh boy, finally school's starting up. Finally the kids can go back to school and I don't have to deal with them all day every day anymore, especially with the little kids. Okay? How many times have we said that? I've said that. Folks, dig deep. Search in your soul. You don't love your child as much as you think you do. If you said that, and all of us have said that. Folks, any parent that truly loves their child, a small child especially, would want to be around them all the time. Okay, I'm talking about small children. I mean, as children get older, they get more independent, of course. Which that's changed too. I remember when I was a little kid, 8, 9, 10 years old, I would go out and I wouldn't come back all day until the street lights came on. Nowadays, my parents would have been thrown in jail, and I would have been thrown in a foster home. But anyway, um, it's just the truth. If you feel like that, if you say that, oh, good, thank God school is coming back so I can get my, small children out of, away from me and I can have some space. You don't truly love your children as much as you think you do. It's just the truth. Admit it. Fucking admit it. Admit it. And hey, I had to admit it. I did it. But you won't do it. You won't do it. You won't. Your ego will just get in the way. Your ego will get right in the way. Your ego won't let you. Yeah. Think about it. If anything, tell yourself the truth. If you can't say it out loud, if you can't say it out loud to another person, which you don't have to. You don't have to say it out loud to another person. At least if you just say it to yourself and admit it to yourself and know it and live it. And, you got the knowledge, you get the understanding that you didn't truly love your children as much as you thought you did, and then align your behaviors with that and start loving them as more. I tried. When the scamdemic started, I sent my kids to public schools, I sent my kids to public schools. I regret every minute of that. Every time I think of me sending my kids to public schools, I just want to break down and cry. Um, so let me just continue here. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just kind of like this is a new format for me, so I'm not sure exactly how to do this. But I think I'll just keep elaborating on what I'm talking about here. But it's we have to admit it. And yeah, I sent my kids to public schools. I tried to when the scamdemic was going on and they started the masking in schools. I demanded that my daughter quit school. She was a 10th grader in high school. Too late. She didn't want to quit, and that's a shame because if I raised my daughter right, she would never want to spend 1 minute in public school with masks, let alone public school at all. If I would have raised her correctly, but I didn't. That's cause and effect. That's natural law. That's natural law came to me there. Natural law. What I caused, the effect happened. My daughter wanted to subject herself to that shit. And of course, she told me, don't worry, Dad. I know the virus is made in the lab. I know it's all bullshit, all that stuff. But I told her, look, when humans get in environments where they go through repetitive procedures, you're going to get conditioned whether you know it or not. Look into the Vietnam American soldiers that were put in Chinese communist indoctrination camps. Look that up. I'm pretty sure I haven't looked at it in a long time, but I'm pretty sure if I remember studying it, many of the American soldiers, prisoners, converted pretty much like to communism, or at least saw the good supposedly in communism. And many people say, well, they were tortured horrendously. No, they actually weren't. They weren't like viciously beaten and stuff like that. At least in some of the camps. Like in most of the camps, they were just like put in uncomfortable sitting positions and stuff like that. Like a lot of that shit that they do to people in Quantico. And they were just like kind of traumatizing them in a sense, mostly psychologically, like how we do to our children in public schools. And people say, well, they just said, most of them probably just said they wanted to convert to communism because they didn't want to deal with the torture anymore. Exactly. That is probably what happened. And that's what our children do. Our children just conform because they don't want to be traumatized psychologically in the public schools. This is, there's a lot to this. I mean, I really didn't want to open up that can of worms because that's requires a lot more explanation. But you can look into it for yourself. So look into that for yourself if you're interested. Okay. So I mentioned they are taught our children that there are limits to how good a person can be. Yeah, public schools don't teach you how to achieve the highest you can. They teach you that there are limits, even for the so-called gifted kids that get A's, which just because you get A's doesn't mean you're smart. Okay. Doesn't mean you're intelligent. Doesn't mean most kids that get A's are just, they regurgitate the information better than others. So they are taught to blindly obey the authorities like animals. We're not teaching our children to be humans. We're teaching them to just behave like animals, like dogs, obey. They are taught that authorities can break the rules from time to time, and they can't. I gotta fix that. The lesson is do as I say, not as I do. Folks, they're taught all this shit. This is the shit that your child's being taught in these fucking public schools. And god damn it, if I knew this shit, my kids would have never seen the light of day in these fucking public schools. And you can sit here and say, well, you sent your kid to public schools, so I'm not going to listen to you at all, or I'm not going to look into what you're talking about. And you know what? You don't truly love your child as much as you think you do. I mean, you'll at least look into this. You truly love your child, you'll at least look into this. Look into the works of John Taylor Gatto. Look that guy up. What else? There was another one. Shit, I forget. But John Taylor Gatto is real good. John Taylor Gatto will get you there. Look into his work. Look into, there's plenty of, Mark Passio talks about outcome-based education. Look into his work. There's, who else? God damn it, I forget. But our children are taught to choose their sexual orientation, that they can also choose their gender in some schools. There's a lot of fight over that, which is good. But the reason why it's child abuse to try to teach children, small children, any child, but small children especially, to choose their sexual orientation and that they can choose their gender. The reason why is because children, once again, like with the saluting of the flag and the national anthem, they don't have the memory storage capacity or the knowledge of how to understand, not to know, understand, and apply that to their wisdom. They don't have those capabilities. And the information they just take it in. They're in that initiative versus guilt stage that Eric Erickson talks about. So that's child abuse as well. And most Americans, that's the problem. See, most Americans, you ask them, well, why is teaching kids, that they can choose their sexual orientation and they can choose their gender and all that kind of stuff, which I think is disgusting. But once again, the reason they give you is, well, that's disgusting or something. And yeah, it is disgusting. Yes, it is. That is the reason why children shouldn't be taught that. But that's not the real true reason. The real true reason is because children don't have the capacity to understand that. They don't have the capacity to make those decisions and understand what they're deciding. The same with standing for a national anthem and saluting a flag. Same thing. Okay, so this is what we should be teaching our children. Natural law, the laws of cause and effect. Okay, so let me go to the information here. Natural law is a body of law that exists by the laws of cause and effect. Natural law exists no matter what laws humans make. Natural law is universal, eternal, inherent, immutable, as well as discoverable and observable. That's what we should be teaching our children. The initiation of physical harm, the cause, results in less freedom. That's the effect. The initiation of physical harm, which is violence, includes murder, assault, rape, trespass, theft, coercion with the threat of violence. I forgot to put that in there. And willful lying that results in physical harm to the deceived. These initiations of physical harm are all forms of theft. Coercion with the threat of violence, taxation, is the theft of a person's ability to make a free will choice that does not initiate physical harm via the threat of the initiation of physical harm, especially when the violence is a real threat. That's a mouthful, but probably a run-on sentence. But folks, this is why, if we loved our children, we would be horrendously against taxation. We would be getting taxed a whole lot less if taxed at all. How can we truly say we love our children when we accept all these taxes, when we accept the existence of the IRS, when we accept the existence of the Federal Reserve? The inverse to the content, the inverse relationship between violence and the loss of freedom is observable. The presence of the IRS, which is coercion with the threat of violence, results in less freedom. Try to tell me that's not true. Try to tell me that's not true. Please, someone try to tell me that having the IRS in our society that we Americans work for, folks, crying to a politician most likely will not get rid of the IRS, and we don't even need to do that, because if we want to get rid of the IRS and the coercion with the threat of violence in our society, which results in less freedom, everyone who works for the IRS needs to quit their job and no one else take that job, and the IRS goes away. That's how it works. Same with the Federal Reserve. Quit your jobs, no one else take those jobs. Goodbye, Federal Reserve. Game over. But we don't. We don't even threaten that. And it's because we don't truly love our children. How can we say we truly love our children when we sit back and say nothing and don't speak out about the existence of the Federal Reserve, which taxes us indirectly, stealing the wealth, stealing our wealth? You put $60,000 in the bank, and in 5 years, you look at your bank statement, you still have that $60,000, but it's not the same $60,000. It's only worth $55,000. It only has $55,000, even less probably now, with purchasing power. That's theft. All that goes to the bigs. How can we truly say we love our children? Think about this, folks. All I'm asking you is to think about this. All right, so what's the solution? We start speaking out. That's the solution. Start making a podcast. Just start making little videos. Just start speaking out. We got to start speaking out and letting people know that we don't support the torture of children. And we got to let people know, hey, we Americans are being represented, our values, who we are, by a person who is directly involved in child sex trafficking. You're a friend of a child sex trafficker, you do business with them, you're involved, even if you're not a client. which once again, according to the files, it looks like very possibly Trump was a client. There could be a lot more to this. But how will we ever know unless we start standing up, demanding answers, flooding the airways? This is the solution. Instead of this war in Iran, the airways should be flooded with people talking about the fact that a person who was involved with a child sex trafficker should not be representing us, not be our leader. And I'm not into politics at all. Politics is violence, politics is slavery. Anything a politician can do for me, pretty much anything a politician can do for me, I can do for myself. People say, well, a politician can reduce your taxes. I can reduce my taxes. How? Don't pay. How about that? We can do that. We the people can say we're not going to pay anymore unless we find out what's really going on with all this stuff. Um, but we got to start speaking this into existence. We need more people to speak out. Just a handful of people doing these podcasts is a fucking joke. It's not going to happen unless we start speaking out. Everything that's going on, the climate engineering programs, the child sex torture programs, the wars, are just going to continue until there's nothing left, until our life support systems collapse, which is very close. I don't want to get into that conversation right now. I'm closing up. Knowledge, understanding, wisdom. Check out the One Great Work Network here. Also, a lot of great content creators on that website. But the One Great Work Network can't be the only ones out there, and I know they're not. I know we're not. But we need like tens of millions to hundreds of millions of people flooding the airways, telling people at the IRS and the Federal Reserve to quit your jobs, don't take and don't take the jobs at IRS and Federal Reserve, FBI, CIA. Well, so we Americans are choosing to go to war with Iran, even though the Iran war is not popular with Americans. We're still over there. There's still Americans involved with it. Why aren't their family members telling them, hey, you shouldn't be involved with that? Instead of blaming the politicians, blame the people who actually carry out the orders. And that's what we should be doing. We got to start speaking out. Got to start flooding the airways. It's not happening. I can't do this alone with another couple hundred people. We need tens of millions. Start getting honest with yourself that you don't truly love your child as much as you think you do. I did it. And you can sit here and say, well, you sent your kids to public school, so I think I probably mentioned this, but we're not going to look into. Yeah, I did mention this. We're not going to listen to you or look into your information. Fucking go ahead then. The cycle has to be broken. The cycle gets broken by people who made the fuck ups, and then they realize their fuck ups, and then they tell the next generation of people who are having children, hey, don't fuck up like this. And that's how we start changing things. We don't just sit back and say, well, I did it, so screw it. Yeah. All right. So that's going to be it. All right, that's it. Natural Law Podcast number 124 in the books. That's a wrap. And best of luck to y'all.